for watching Numbskull News, and today I'm doing a tier list, a realignment tier list, as far as what is the most realistic things that the Big 12 can look forward to as far as pulling teams from the ACC. So, I had to come up with some criteria for this tier list. Number one, Big 12 interest. That includes the interest of our media partners, Fox, ESPN, whoever is going to be another media partner, possibly 2030, 31. Also, the interest of Brett Yormark and the other parts of the Big 12 leadership, the other ADs and school presidents, such and those kind of things. We know Yormark and the rest of the leadership of the Big 12 don't always see eye to eye. If they did, UConn would be in the Big 12 right now. So we have to keep that in mind. The second part of this criteria is what is realistic? All right. As far as fan fiction and all that, we got to, kind of get rid of that. The probability of it happening, which I know overall this is a tier list of probability, but the realism of it has to play a part here, has to play a role. Thirdly, teams that have an interest in the Big 12 or going to the Big 12. What's that interest level like? Now, that doesn't mean if I don't feel they have a lot of interest, that doesn't mean they don't come to the Big 12. Remember, Utah, Arizona State didn't want to come to the Big 12. There wasn't a lot of interest there, but they still showed up when essentially their conference was imploding. They had no choice. A lot of the same things are going to happen with the ACC. Hence this list. Okay, this is based off of a conference that's going to get Pac-12. So some schools aren't going to have a choice. It's either stay there and drown or get to higher ground, which would be the Big 12. And there's no super higher ground of the Big 10 and the SEC available. And lastly, based off of my opinions, things that I have researched, these are educated opinions. I know it's speculation, but still, I have done my research. That's how I formulate my opinions. I'm not just talking out of my ass, even though sometimes it may look that way. So, let's get to the tier list. So, right off the jump, you'll notice there's no F tier. I'm trying to keep it a little respectful. So, D tier, Florida State, Clemson. I don't think there's a shot in hell of them coming to the Big 12. I don't believe this is very realistic. Would there be interest from the Big 12? Of course. From their media partners, Yormark, Big 12 leadership? Yes. Would they have interest in coming to the Big 12? I don't think a lot. I think they've talked to the Big 12, but we know where they stand. They want to go to one of the Big 2. That's their ultimate goal. That's what they want. And I think that's what they're going to get. And that's my opinion. So when you add it all up, they're on the lowest tier as far as probable schools to come to the Big 12. Louisville, Virginia Tech, NC State, these are a lock. These are a lock. These are going to happen. I don't know in what order. Louisville, I believe, will be first. Virginia Tech, NC State. NC State, there's political issues going on there between them and UNC. We'll see what happens. There's some rumors about Virginia Tech and Virginia having similar political situations there in Virginia, but I don't think it's as serious. I don't care however, whatever plays out, those three are future Big 12 schools. That's why they're on the S tier. S tier is this shit's going to happen. Everything's there. The media partners, Big 12 leadership, Yormark, my opinion, the realistic chances of it happening. The probabilities are extraordinarily high, through the roof, for those three to come to the Big 12. And by the way, Duke, I believe that sincerely. Now, I put them a little further down the S tier, right? A little further down. They're not as talked about. However, and usually their football viewership isn't great. It can spike depending on how they do. But we all know blue blood status in basketball. Yormark covets basketball. I'm telling you right now, if there's a chance for Duke, of course, Yormark, he wanted UConn. He's going to want Duke. Now, The Big 12 leadership didn't agree with Yormark. At least they haven't yet when it comes to UConn. They'll have a different opinion when it comes to Duke because this is a Power 4 school. So as we converge, as this thing coalesces into a Power 3 structure from 2030 on, Duke is going to be valued by the Big 12, by the leadership, and I believe the media partners. Fox got involved with the Big 12 for basketball, and you're going to tell them you're going to add another blue blood? I think they're going to be all about it. A tier. I got Georgia Tech in the A tier. The only reason I don't put them in the S tier, all right, the only reason, you don't hear or see as much written or talked about as you do Louisville, Virginia Tech, NC State. And even though Duke isn't written about that much, but they are such a blue blood in basketball. And you see how Yormark has been coveting UConn. I think you can just look right down the line and say he would be the same way with Duke. And I think the presidents of the Big 12 would see it a little differently as far as Duke versus UConn. Georgia Tech, they're not a blue blood in football. They're not a blue blood in basketball. They're a good sports program, pretty good. The market is massive. I do believe ESPN would still like to have those advertising dollars there in Atlanta, even though they don't own the market. Okay? But keep this in mind. Houston, University of Houston is in Houston. They don't own that market. Okay? Just because the university is called Houston doesn't mean they own Houston. But like Houston, there's potential there for Georgia Tech. And I don't believe they hit their ceiling yet on their value. So I have really great feelings with Georgia Tech coming to the Big 12. Now let's talk Virginia and UNC. Now I've done a million videos about UNC. I haven't really done any with Virginia. But they're kind of in the same boat, right? There's a lot of people that feel that Virginia and UNC are going to go to the SEC. They're highly coveted by the Big Two conferences. Y'all know I don't feel that way. I just don't. I think the Big 12 would love them. And I think the media partners they have, which ESPN is also a media partner of Virginia and UNC, I think ESPN would rather have them in the Big 12. All things considered. I think the leadership of the Big 12, Yormark, everything lines up. Now, I don't put UNC or Virginia in the S tier just because I am literally the only person that doesn't believe UNC is going to one of the Big Two. Now, it's not as stark with Virginia. All right, a lot of people that think the SEC, but they don't speak as passionately about it as they do UNC. So, a little less probability with UNC. That's what knocks them down to the A tier for me. But my opinion, of course, keeps them from going lower on this probability scale. Virginia, that's not what does it. They have really balls-ass viewership. It's not great. But it's still a brand, still a big basketball brand. And that is very, very important with the Big 12. With the SEC, like that's been rumored, they want to grow their basketball. They're not going to add dilutive football programs to add elite basketball schools. That's not going to happen. Or they would go out and grab UConn. And if you notice, the Big 12 hasn't even grabbed UConn. So think it through, okay? Think it through. Stanford and Cal. I wanted to go ahead and address the C instead of just going down a straight line. So just for entertainment purposes. Cal and Stanford. The only reason I don't put them in the D level is, look, they are in California, which I don't love personally. I say stay away from any California schools if you're the Big 12. However, you have to think of Big 12 leadership, which includes the 4 former PAC schools. They would absolutely value having Cal and Stanford in the Big 12. Not just for travel purposes, but familiarity, elite educational schools, of course. They do bring great value as far as, not as far as their no money making sports programs, their Olympic sports and things like that. Stanford especially is elite with that. But I don't know how much the media partners, I know Fox absolutely didn't want them in the Big Ten. Is that the reason they're not in the Big 12 is because of Fox? Very well could be. They could have said, look, we'll give you money for the Four Corners, but we're not going to give you money for Stanford and Cal. And thus, they had to go all the way across the country for the ACC. Now, you can easily... Now, I've heard people say, well, Stanford and Cal didn't want any part of the Big 12. That's why they just went and talked to the ACC. Is that true? Could be. And if that's true, it was a big mistake. It's a laughable mistake. But I don't know how much Big 12 interest there actually is in Stanford and Cal. I don't know how much your Mark really values having them. I think as far as Big 12 leadership, I think it might be split 50-50, but the media partners is a big question. Do they have interest in the Big 12? I don't think it's very high. I could believe that. I could believe Stanford and Cal, don't value being in the Big 12 very much. Now, would they do it when the ACC implodes and they can get in there? They would. But that doesn't mean they get to go. They might. I think they'll end up back in the pack. But I am going to leave just a small window of opportunity here that this could happen. It's just not very probable. I got Miami on the B level. Now, Big 12 would be hot and heavy for Miami. I mean, I think this is it's probably one of the biggest targets outside of Louisville that the Big 12 has. Because right now we don't know. We don't know what the expansion plans or how open the Big Ten is to expansion. The SEC, I don't believe they're going to expand very much. But if they're going to get another Florida school, they're going to go with the biggest Florida school. That's what I believe. They're not going to go with Miami. They'll go with Florida State. And I don't believe they have an interest in a third Florida school. You cannot count out the Big Ten at all. So I would love to put them on an S tier, but that would be me saying that that's absolutely going to happen. I can't say that. I can't even put them on the A tier. All right, because right now it's a 50-50 shot of whether they get into the Big Ten or not. If they don't, it's as simple as this. If they cannot get to the Big Ten, they will go to the Big 12. That part is a lock. They're not going to stay in the ACC. You can forget that damn pipe dream.
If you don't mind, why don't you just touch that little subscribe button? All right? You don't even got to like it. I'm not even asking you for a like. You don't got to like jack shit. But, how about help a brother out? How about subscribe to this hoe, huh? Huh? Only takes a minute. Just touch it. Just hit it.
Now, here's a couple controversial picks for the B list, for the B tier. Syracuse. We don't hear a lot about, they'll definitely go after Syracuse. We don't hear that. Not like we do Louisville or Virginia Tech or NC State. Nowhere on that level. And they're not a blue blood in basketball. I don't think you can put them there. But they are one of the better basketball programs in the country. They are solid as it gets. And would the Big 12 be interested in that? I think your Mark would. In New York, I think our media partners might be okay with that. As far as the Big 12 leadership, I think they would be open to Syracuse. Their football program, although, not some juggernaut, it is improving. They had a really good year last year. It's not just based off of 1 year. They've been kind of they have steadily been a pretty damn good program. Not, like I said, not the best. We haven't seen them in the playoffs, but definitely not the worst. They can come up and get people. My opinion of Syracuse is I want to see him in the Big 12. That's where I am. That's where I'm at now with Syracuse. I would love to. I got a high opinion of him. And maybe that's what kind of boosts him from a C level to a B level for me. Keep an eye on Syracuse when you're talking realignment, Big 12 expansion. I think it's real. I think there's a realistic chance is what I'm saying. And then there's Pitt. Most people would put Pitt right in the S tier, especially West Virginia fans. But this isn't the West Virginia 12, it's the Big 12. It takes more than one school, one AD, one president to decide on realignment. I know West Virginia fans will love Pitt, backyard brawl, the whole nine. Keep in mind the backyard brawl is not going anywhere, regardless of what conference Pitt is in. All right, it's just not going anywhere. I don't know the value here. Media partners, do they really give a damn if we have Pitt or not? I don't think they do. I think when they look at Louisville, when they look at Virginia Tech and their history, when they look at NC State or Duke, I think there's value there for a media partner. I don't know the value for a media partner when it comes to Pitt. I don't think it's as high as people think it is. Everyone assumes S or A tier when it comes to Pitt. To me, boy, I wanted to put them at least in the D level, at least in the C level, if not the D level. But a lot of people, I got to keep in mind, there's a lot of media types out there, just like even though UNC, this might be very high for some people as far as UNC in the A tier, but I wanted to put them in the S tier, but I can't do that because I'm the only person that thinks that could happen. Pitt, everyone thinks that's inevitable. It's going to happen to the Big 12. I don't know about that. So with that, and I don't know about the media partners, I don't know how they feel about Pitt. Plus, I think there are bigger brands that are destined for the Big 12, much bigger than Pitt, and it might knock them out, is all I'm saying. So, we'll see what happens in the next couple of years, Pitt, but I would suggest having better seasons like how you started 2024, not how you ended 2024. And of course, we got to talk about the smallest schools in the ACC, the ones probably with the least viewership, Boston College, Wake Forest, and yes, SMU. Even though SMU had a great year last year, made the playoff last year, the ratings suck nuts. The city of Dallas just didn't show up for SMU. Let's be real here. They didn't show up. But, who knows? Maybe that changes with the success they've had this year. Maybe next year those ratings go up quite a bit. It very well could. Boston College and Wake Forest, everybody they already have them in the Oregon State, Washington State basket, and there's nothing I can do to really change that. I would love to move them up in this list. But I kind of agree. There's not enough there. I don't think when you're selecting outside of a merger, I just, the Big 12, it's not like Oregon State and Washington State didn't call and say, hey, what about us? They did. And they were told, well, sorry, maybe next time. Well, there's not going to be a next time. Boston College and Wake Forest will call the Big 12. And they're going to kind of get the same answer that the two West Coast schools got. And I'm sorry, guys, but that's kind of the way this realignment cookie is going to crumble for some people. Not everyone's going to make it and still be in a power conference in the next 6, 7, 8 years. It's just not going to happen. And by the way, that's not me hating on anybody. Even though I'm a TCU fan, I'm not hating on SMU with this. I actually have some interest in SMU coming to the Big 12 because I like the rivalry. But like I said with Pitt and West Virginia, the rivalry is going to exist regardless of where Pitt plays. TCU, SMU, crosstown rivalry will happen regardless of what conference SMU ends up in. And last but not least, Notre Dame. If they can't play 5 games in the ACC because the ACC is going to lose its ass, where do they go? Do they join the Big Ten fully? I seriously doubt it. Do they join the SEC fully? I seriously doubt it. Do they join the Big 12 fully? No. They're going to stay independent. But they're going to want to make some money out of one of these conferences. They're going to want to put their basketball and all the other sports into one of those other 3 conferences. They're going to want to play 5 games around there. They're willing to sell games to those conferences. Now, the Big Ten, from everything I heard, not interested in that. They want all or nothing. The SEC, I've heard all or nothing, and I've also heard, at least from what I've seen reported, that the SEC may have interest in that. And does the Big 12 have interest? Oh, yes, you bet your ass they would have interest in welcoming in Notre Dame for 5 games and all their other sports. Absolutely. So where's the probability? Where is the probability of Notre Dame doing an ACC-style deal with the Big 12? I give it a B. Because if the SEC is interested, that's who they're going to do the deal with. But if the SEC turns their nose up, it's Big 12, baby. So I would like to put them a little higher, but I am scared that the SEC is willing to do that, or will be willing to do that. Of course, we'll find out. But still, solid B for Notre Dame. So what does all of this even mean? Is there even a reason for me to make this video? Yeah. Look at the top 4 of that. Look at the top 4 of that. We're talking Louisville. We're talking Virginia Tech, NC State, Duke. I'm telling you, they're a lock for the Big 12. We got national media people that are talking Louisville, Pitt, or whomever. Why wouldn't they come to the Big 12? Especially once Florida State and Clemson leave. You're starting to get national people talking like that now, which they didn't before. Remember in the Pac? Oh, most of the national media, the vast majority of those guys, every one of them, even YouTube guys here, the Pac-12 will find a TV deal and they'll stay together. And what happened? Dead ass wrong. With the ACC, we're talking what anyone's thinking about 4 or 5 years before any kind of movement will likely happen. People are already talking what the Big 12 is going to be able to pull out of the ACC. This is a different type of narrative that's going on than what did with the Pac as it is with the ACC. People are putting those two things together like, well, we've seen it once and we saw what the Big 12 did. We're seeing it again. And it all looks inevitable. Especially with the settlement, the way that came out. You're kind of screwed in the ACC now. I don't think there may not be a way to control the demolition of the ACC. So, with those changing narratives, it is well within a Big 12 fan's right to think tier list, to think, who are we going to get? And since I've always been I keep getting asked that question, who? Thus, I made the tier list. That's where I stand. That's what I think the likelihood of these different schools in their proper tier list. Anyway, thanks for watching this crap, and I'll be back with some more crap later. Bye.